Welcome to the Birth Squad podcast. If you're riding with the squad,
hey fam!
And if you're new,
welcome to the squad. We're your hosts, Dr. Ijama Okwando and Dr. Kanisha Thomas. We're two licensed obstetrician and gynecologists, as well as best friends.
The Birth Squad is a podcast for birthing individuals by two Black female physicians who use stories from real women to educate about pregnancy, birth experiences, reproductive health, and all things in between.
And while we hope that you love learning from our podcast, it is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So please consult your healthcare provider for your specific care. And to learn more about us and about the podcast, please follow us on Instagram at The Birth Squad. And also check out our website, thebirthsquad.com.
Please keep in mind that some of our episodes may cover topics that could be triggering to some individuals. Listener discretion is advised. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Birth Squad podcast. We have yet another special guest this episode, someone that I have the privilege of working with on the regular on labor and delivery, one of our very best nurses, Deja McCullough. So, Deja, welcome to the Birth Squad.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks
so
for
we
being
wanted to start. We just wanted to start by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, obviously my name is Deja, like you said. I'm a mother of four, 3 girls, 1 boy. They're almost 12, 11, 6, and 3. So yes, I've been married for 12 years. I've been a nurse for 13 years. Yeah, that's pretty much being a nurse and a mother and a wife.
Can you tell us a little bit about your path to motherhood as a mother of 4? Like, when did it all start? How did you get there?
Yes, well, I'm an only child, so I really don't like that. I try to advocate for people to at least have 2 children, but I know it's a lot now. So, but I've always hated being an only child, so I knew I always wanted a lot of children. I always said I wanted 5, but I'm not now. I might be good at 4. So yeah, I've just always wanted to be a mom. I went from high school straight through college, and then I got married, and then I wanted to start a family.
And initially, I thought she had 5 kids. I was like, yeah, she has 5 kids. And she's like, stop telling people that. I was like, oh.
It's funny how only children want to have a lot of kids, and then someone like myself, who's one of 7, like probably just wants 1 or 2.
Exactly. Yeah, that's usually how it is.
The grass is always greener.
So, you said that. Say that again, Ijama?
I said the grass is always greener on the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So of your 4 kids, we wanted to kind of focus on that first delivery experience. Can you talk to us about that birth? And specifically, because you had a very unique situation for California, I would say. You had an operative vaginal delivery with forceps. So can you just, if you can, walk us through that birth and walk us through what that delivery looked like?
Okay, well, that was a whole very interesting experience. I was very young. My husband, he's also an only child, so we knew we wanted to start a family fairly soon. So we were both pretty young, 22 and he was 23. And then originally I wanted to have an unmedicated birth. So I did a lot of like reading and stuff. So I went in there. My water broke before. I mean, looking back, I think I was having contractions like the day before, but my water broke like at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Or no, it was 2 a.m. on a Monday morning. And I didn't really get contractions, so I just basically came in and I wanted all natural. I didn't want Pitocin. And at this time I was a nurse, but I wasn't a labor and delivery nurse. So I wanted to just wait till contractions came naturally and everything. And then after about 12 hours, nothing was happening. And then I had to get on Pitocin, and then eventually I needed to get an epidural. So the labor was just super long. And my daughter, she wasn't born until 5 a.m. Tuesday morning. So it was a very long labor. And she was also OP, sunny side up. So, and then knowing that at the time that was my first pregnancy, I wanted to have, of course, a vaginal delivery because I knew that if I had a C-section with my first kid, I couldn't. And at the time, like toe lacking and VBACs weren't really a norm. So I was really worried that was kind of going to cap the amount of kids I could have to probably like 3. So I was really, really adamant that I did not want a C-section for that reason. And I think going back that my daughter's heart rate probably was going down. And I don't really remember ever a C-section really being discussed until the very end. But from what I remember, I don't remember them giving me an option between forceps or a vacuum. I remember like I signed like a paper form that like consented to the operative delivery, but just forceps, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit, but I I agreed to it, so it was interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. So it sounds like you went in with, expectations of a vaginal delivery going unmedicated, and it turned into needing Pitocin, being on an epidural.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that maybe your plan did not include the thought about an operative vaginal delivery, or a forceps.
Exactly.
Like, what was your understanding about it prior to your experience about like an operative vaginal delivery?
I didn't think I would want that done, and I don't think I really thought about it at all. I just kind of just the ignorance of it all. I just thought like everything's gonna be fine. So I didn't even think of that as an option. It was either, vaginal delivery or C-section for me. So when I was presented with that, I was just like, I guess it's better than a C-section. And they said it's safe. I don't remember them explaining any of like the consequences or anything, but I do just remember signing a form and they did it. And I delivered at a teaching hospital. So I think it was the actually attending and then a resident there. So they were presenting it like it's 2 doctors. So I was like, okay, this seems safe.
Yeah. How did you feel, if you can remember? Because I remember me and you, we talked earlier, and you're like, I don't remember everything from that experience. Do you have any idea of how you felt? Like, was there any overriding feeling that you remember in that moment?
I was
having that conversation with them?
Yeah, at that point I was really, really exhausted. I had been up for probably like 2 days, so I don't remember everything verbatim. I had a lot of people in the room that I didn't want in the room, so I was just exhausted at the time. So I was kind of happy to have like an end to this whole ordeal.
Who was in the room, if you mind me asking, that you didn't want?
It was pretty much like everyone except my husband. My best friend was there, but she was fine. She was great. She could have stayed, and then my husband. But yeah, my mom and my husband's mom.
Yeah, Deja, I feel like you also brought up a really good point, and that's exactly why we wanted to have this conversation with you, is that most people, when they think about their delivery, they're only thinking about C-section or vaginal delivery. There is a third option, like you said, that can help prevent someone from having a C-section if they are a good candidate for it, which is an operative delivery. So like, were there any like concerns or fears that you had about the procedure? And like in that moment, how did you kind of mentally and emotionally prepare yourself for the forceps delivery?
I was pretty just nervous that it would affect my baby. For the most part, I didn't really hear too many cons with it affecting the baby. So they just said I could tear more. So I was just nervous and didn't know what to expect.
So can you walk us through the actual procedure? And what was that experience like for you?
Okay, so that was, my oldest turns 12 in a couple weeks, so it was like almost 12 years ago. I think my epidural wasn't working properly, so they gave me a bolus maybe like 20 minutes before, I believe. Um, and then there was so many people in the room, like tons of people. And then I believe I think they timed when the forceps were placed, I believe. And then I think they did like 2 tugs, if I'm not mistaken. Not positive, but it was like with the contractions, like so maybe 2 contractions, if that sounds right. And then she was out.
Good. So it seems like you were able to avoid a C-section
Yes.
and relieve the length of your labor. Were there any unexpected challenges or complications that occurred at the time of the delivery or postpartum for you personally?
Yes, definitely postpartum for the birth. My daughter had just some redness on her forehead, but that went away by the time we left the hospital about 2 days later. And then I had a really bad, I don't remember the degree of the laceration, but I know it might have been like 3rd degree. And so leaving, it became infected. So I went back to the original hospital, and I think they tried to repair it incorrectly. And then I went to like another hospital, and they were able to repair it. And I had to be on antibiotics. So it was this whole, the repair was like pretty much the worst part of it. And now, like looking back, I think a C-section honestly would have been a better recovery than just going to and from the hospital and having antibiotics and a fever and everything, trying to navigate motherhood. That was a hard time.
It sounds very difficult. How did that make you feel emotionally? Probably a redundant question, right? But like when you look back on that time, how did you feel?
It was difficult because I didn't like just no one. I didn't have a lot of support from my family. It was just my husband and his mom trying to help me. And my mother-in-law, she's a teacher, so she didn't like, I just kind of had to navigate it myself. And so I knew it was infected, but then I was like, is it a big deal? And it was rough. And then still trying to like breastfeed, and it was a lot.
Is there any advice that you want to offer to expectant mothers who may be facing the possibility of an operative vaginal delivery, or any other advice that you would like to share for women postpartum?
I would say definitely do your research, look into every single option there is, not just the ones that are most popular, or don't just go with like what you plan to do. Definitely look into every single option, know the risk associated with it, but also the benefits.
So after you had that experience, you had 3 more kids,
Yes.
vaginally, I assume.
Yes.
How did your first experience affect your decision going into your second birth?
My second one, it was different. My water didn't break before labor. My first pregnancy was the only delivery where my water broke before. But my second, they were all 4 were completely different. My second one, she was like a week overdue, which now I wouldn't go that far, but then I just needed a little pitocin, and I pushed maybe for 30 minutes. And then my third one, my son, he was also OP, and I pushed for another 4 hours. And with my son, I was actually a labor and delivery nurse. So I was just so embarrassed because I knew that people were in the nurse's station saying, like, this is her third baby. She can't push the baby out. So I was like, oh. But
But you
he
did
ended up,
push that baby out, and it was
yeah,
OP. So you,
yes.
yeah.
But I was asking for a C-section with him, but the doctor said no. Like, I was making progress. I was like, no, I'm not. But she was right. And then my last baby, she just turned 3. I was induced because my blood pressure was high, and I just needed a little Pitocin, and I went from 4 to complete in like 20 minutes. And the doctor barely made it. So all very different deliveries.
But at the end of the day, would you say you would make the same choice as far as your first delivery is concerned?
I don't think so, because I don't like hearing that forceps are so rare, because at the time I didn't know it was rare even for 12 years ago. So I don't know why it was like, I just don't understand why it's rare. To me, it's kind of similar to the vacuum, but I don't know. I guess the vacuums, I don't know.
You're
But
absolutely right. Yeah. I would say that it's more like both of them do the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forceps are more likely to be successful.
mm-hmm.
That's why it's usually, if someone knows how to do it, then they're a highly skilled obstetrician, because there's very people that don't do it still, because it's like something that was like an older skill that was developed. Vacuum came out later. It's easier mechanically to teach someone how to use it. So that's why it's more popular, because people feel more comfortable using the vacuum. But in essence, they're the same. They're just two different tools to accomplish the same goal. Yeah. So you had a highly skilled obstetrician that used forceps, so that it's only rare because most people are not skilled in that.
Got it. Okay.
And it's very regional, right? Like California, West Coast in general, a lot of trainees learn the vacuum. You go to New York in the East Coast, there's a lot of providers who are still doing forceps. Same thing you can see in Colorado as well. So it's a regional tool as well as a highly skilled tool that some people know and others don't.
Yeah,
but I would say, yeah, it just depends on your training. And I would say, you had the right mindset, right? You're like, I want to have a lot of kids.
Yes.
A lot of people, that is their thought process, because I know A, I'm going to go with B, right? Like that I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for your overall long-term goal, definitely like probably the right decision to make. Given that you have 4 kids, because a 4th C-section is quite challenging potentially.
Yes.
And so we'd be having a whole nother conversation potentially.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, is there anything you want? Sorry, Jama. I was going to say, is there anything that you wanted to share with the Birth Squad or anybody else who might be listening to the podcast?
I just say we all have our plans, but to just kind of go with the flow. Don't be too hard on yourself if things don't go as planned. I know I kind of was upset that I ended up getting an epidural, but I mean, now it just doesn't matter. The whole point is healthy mom, healthy baby. So just be kind to yourself.
Great advice. Yes. Sound words.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. We love hearing unique stories. And, we love just sharing more information with our listeners, because there's probably someone else out there who had the exact same experience as you and might really resonate with your story. So thank you, and I'll see you at work.
See you. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
That's the wrap of this episode of The Birth Squad.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. We are going to continue sharing stories from more badass birth warriors, because at the end of the day, you are the experts of your experience, and we want to highlight you and your bold, brave, and beautiful journey to motherhood.
And we want to hear from you. Tell us about what topics you'd like to hear more about. Hit us up on Instagram at The Birth Squad, and check out our website, thebirthsquad.com.
Most importantly, be sure to share this episode with your squad.
Until next time, I'm Dr. Ijama Obwandu.
And I'm Dr. Kamisha Thomas.
Peace, love, and solidarity from the Birth Squad.